Thank you, Steve. To our big story today, the New York Times making a major revision to its latest report about another sexual misconduct allegation against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The Times updating the story with an editor's note, writing the female student involved, quote, declined to be interviewed, and friends say that she does not recall the incident. The piece claimed Justice Kavanaugh exposed himself at a party back in college.
Which is similar to a story that Debbie Ramirez said that was not being able to be validated when he was out there. The note comes after several outlets report the allegation, and 2020 Democrats push to impeach the justice, as you're reading. Joining us right now is the Chief Counsel and Policy Director at Judicial Crisis and author of the network, I should say, and co-author of Justice on Trial. It looks at the Kavanaugh case. Carrie Severino, thanks for joining us. This is an excerpt from a book that came out. What was your take about the uproar this weekend about the allegations printed in that opinion piece?
Yeah, well, I've had a chance to read the whole book cover to cover, and I can tell you there's no corroboration of the Ford allegations, the Ramirez allegations, the Swetnick allegations going in. They didn't find anything new. And now they're trying to peddle these new, allegedly new allegations that actually were reported to Senate Democrats at the time. They were so weak that even the incredibly credulous Senate staffers did not follow up on them. And then, of course, they left out in their New York Times coverage of the piece that the very woman alleged to have been involved in these allegations herself says she doesn't remember them. So this is the weakest of the weak type of allegations. It's really a shameful attempt to reignite these smears against Judge Kavanaugh that are utterly baseless.
Carrie, throughout this whole process, inconvenient facts, the narrative about Justice Kavanaugh have been ignored. And after the committee hearings, as you know, the Senate came out with that 400-page report that was the investigation chasing down leads of doing a number of interviews. And they actually found no evidence that corroborated any of the allegations against Justice Kavanaugh, but actually did find a number of witnesses refuting the allegations that had been made.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. Buried in the book are even corroboration of some of the same things that we found in Justice on Trial, like how concerned Leland Kaiser was after looking back at Christine Blasey Ford's allegations and saying, this doesn't add up. There's a lot of things they just kind of brush over, like the fact that people not only don't corroborate things, but undercut the allegations. The fact that Democrats are using this to call for impeachment, to call for more investigations. Really, this strikes me as a political attempt here by liberals in general. They want to intimidate the court. They want to intimidate Justice Kavanaugh, and I don't think it should work. Your
book became a bestseller by Hemingway because there was such thoroughness to it. It was reporting. It wasn't opinion. And this guy, Max Stier, who is he? He's a lawyer from Washington who says he remembers the story, but the accuser doesn't remember the story. What could you tell us about this guy?
Right. They don't mention that Max Stier, who they present as just a neutral thought leader in Washington, he actually worked for Bill Clinton back when he was defending him against the Lewinsky scandal. That's when Brett Kavanaugh was on the other side. These guys go way back. Mm-hmm. They have a long-running feud, right? So, of course, there's motive here, on top of which, the story doesn't even have him corroborating that he passed around this gossip, not to mention that the alleged woman, again, doesn't seem to believe it herself. So this is the most extreme hearsay and gossip that's being peddled around as an attempt to smear Kavanaugh even further.
Carrie, you're talking about the peddling of hearsay and gossip. Can you talk about the media's role going back to last year when Justice Kavanaugh was announced with his nomination, and really what they have done to publish allegations without any kind of evidence, including over the weekend?
Yeah, well, this was kind of a case in point of, unfortunately, what we've seen as a pattern in some of the media where you have an allegation that they throw out there with, it's a bombshell, there's this new exciting information, and when you start digging deeper, it turns out they knew all along there were a lot of holes that they just kind of brushed over and didn't talk about. Some cases that we reveal in Justice on Trial, they actually even knew that other people had refuted things and they chose not to include that information in their stories. So that's a real concern that we don't know the full story and that people's reputations are being trashed, are being damaged irreparably based on absolutely uncorroborated information. You can't just run with this. And of course, the politicians are happy to go hand in hand with this. They are just willing to do whatever it takes to undermine the excellent judges that this president has been putting up. That's a shame.
You know, you got to wonder if there's another Supreme Court justice that's up for nomination. They might say it's not worth it for me and my family.
Yep, that's
it's just not worth it because that's not like the pay's increased that much. And if you're going to have your family drag through like this, and this is with the entire Republican Party in your backing you up from the Bush sector to the Trump sector, and still he was unprotected about all this. Carrie, that's why your book is a must read. Congratulations on it, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Thanks, Carrie.
Meanwhile.